Yeah.
So I'm gonna call the meeting to order. And we will do a roll call to make certain that it's documented that we have a quorum. So Josh Fay,
Present.
Dormer here, Kate Ryan,
Yes.
and Liz Cobb,
I'm here.
and Bill Marachek. So we have a full slate tonight. All right, the first item is gonna be the approval of the minutes now. The June 12th, 2024 is still pending. So we're gonna move on to the September 11th, 2024. And when I say pending, it's trying to recreate the necessary data and information to be able to have a complete minute document. So, but we do have September 11th, 2024. Any questions, comments? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of September 11th, 2024.
So,
All right, okay, thank you.
Second.
Right. Go. So all in favor, Liz Cobbs,
aye.
Josh May.
Yes.
Joe Emmer,
Yes.
Kate Ryan.
Yes.
And Bill Marachek, yes, okay. Before we get to item number 3, I just wanted to report that Liz and I had a meeting this morning with the town manager. We haven't met with her probably for at least 6 months, but the idea was that we wanted to make certain that we had an opportunity to talk about the personnel board. And an idea of issues or items she might be interested in the personnel board being involved with. The main agenda item was to review with her the personnel board charge. And to ensure that the 4 items that are listed there for FY 25 and beyond objectives were consistent with what she was hoping that we would do. She was very complimentary of the Human Resources Organization now. Very positive about each one of you that are making a real dedicated, committed contribution. Happy that she had a full slate at this time. And then she also acknowledged that the personnel board members are clearly, probably at least in terms of the last 6 or 7 years I've been on the personnel board, you know, in terms of competencies and in terms of experience, whether it's the municipal side of things or the private side of things, labor and so forth. Liz's involvement on a more practical level with teams and with large policymaking organizations. So it was nice that she's supportive of us and is certainly very appreciative of the fact that we're all contributing to the town. Okay, so that, putting that aside, let's move to the assistant. Is this gonna be Jess, or how was are we gonna eventually move to Aaron, or are you two gonna be a tandem, or how does the future look on this?
So right now, I think I'm still sort of technically the interim HR director, but I feel like now I've pretty much morphed into the HR director, although nothing has been really
Okay.
formally in place. Aaron is officially our assistant HR director, and then over the next year or two, I think we're gonna see kind of where things go and how that morphs down the road. She might end up kind of being really the lead of HR, even if she doesn't have the title, but it might be like a deputy type role.
Sure.
It's again, it's kind of a moving
It'll evolve.
target as
It'll
we evolve and figure out how all of us work together as a team. We definitely have a lot of strengths within the department. You know, there's, you know, opportunities for other folks to potentially take on more duties based on their strengths. It's just evolving and going with the flow. But for now, I'm at least including her on probably 99% of what I'm doing, just so she can kind of learn, shadow me. And she's gonna be helping initially with a lot of things like recruiting. She's been sitting at the table with us for our various collective bargaining sessions to kind of learn and get up to speed on that, coming from the private sector. Erin doesn't have have any experience with bargaining, but there's plenty here that we can show her and that she'll pick up on. So hopefully that's been a good experience.
Right.
As well.
I want to interrupt you just briefly because town manager was very supportive of Kimberly's involvement here within the town. I don't know if you're able to talk a little bit more about the coming months in terms of your involvement with the town and because we were informed that you're going to be continuing in some role.
Yes.
Supporting the town of Concord, and that there were some, areas of HR that clearly can use your expertise and your knowledge, and be a very important complementary component of the town manager's office and the human resources people.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that, and just please feel free to jump in with any additional comments. But Jess, Aaron and I have created quite I'll call it a three-legged stool. They are handling the day-to-day operations of human resources, and I have agreed to stay on and continue to work HR projects. Right now, primarily, we are working on the kickoff of delineation of goals for every position that's covered under the regular classification structure. And we have begun that in earnest and are working with the SMT to finalize their goals so that those goals can be cascaded down to the remaining employees that are covered by the regular pay plan. And it's a very exciting initiative, and one that, has a time limit on it, because we definitely want everyone to have their goals in place by December 1st so that there's at least 6 months that they have to complete their goals for the merit pay plan. Some of the additional initiatives that we're working toward are a global training initiative across the town for our employees, so that we can plan ahead and have like a monthly topic that we're working toward, with several opportunities for employees to attend these sessions. And that is in its infancy stages as well. And then also we'll be working together on some rebranding and recruitment initiatives as well. And so those are the three very interesting and I think forward-thinking and can be very impactful initiatives that we're treating as special projects.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we'll be happy to see you continuing and participating in these meetings when you're able to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back to Jeff.
Excellent. Yes, so Kimberly definitely covered one of the points I wanted to discuss. So thank you, Kimberly, which was the goal setting and all of that, which of course ultimately will lead into the new evaluation tool. That's also going to be something Kimberly will be helping with. We'll be roping in all of you. I know the Purcell board has a significant interest in being involved with what that evaluation tool is going to look like. So once we at least get goals in place for people, then we'll get working on that form. So we're kind of going in stages with that. And just to understand how the goals are working, I don't know if any of you tuned in recently to select board meetings or what have you, but basically there's the select board goals that have now trickled down into the town manager's goals. Those are then going down to SNT and then all of our groups under us. So there's a logic and a reasoning behind that. So that's a key piece of what Kimberly is helping to orchestrate in terms of sitting with the different departments. So that's really exciting. In terms of other items that HR has been working on, we have agreements now in place with the 2 unions at the library. I know unions aren't under your purview, but I'd like to just have a sense of what we've been working on here. We are still at the table with police. I think we're getting close there, and we continue our discussions with Public Works Union as well. Got a couple of recruitments that are in process in terms of new communications manager role. There has been an individual identified for that position. We are just working through all the various background checks and all of that, so it's not quite public yet, but hopefully it will be soon. We have a new interim chief information officer. That's Amalia McCaffrey. She's a current employee with us, serving in that interim role since Jason Bulger was just promoted to the director of the Concord Light Department. So we've got some movement there. We have some interim folks in place. And I know I'm missing probably something else, but just the usual stuff going on. Getting ready for our open enrollment for our Medicare retirees, since HR took on the retiree benefits piece, that's task we have coming up. So that's pretty much it. And then, of course, you saw the report in the packet, which was just the usual head counts and things that we provide each month.
Roughly, Jess, how many employees are going to fall into the Medicare group?
0 employees, because even if you're 65 or older, if you're still actively employed, you keep your current plan until such time you retire, then we help you move and transition to Medicare. So I want to say we've got probably 200. That's probably a little high, but I'd say 150, 175 Medicare eligible retirees. So some may be switching plans, some might just stay on the same plan, but we do that because the Medicare plans run January 1st every year.
What is interesting to note for me in terms of that number is essentially the age group of employees in this town, and how over the next coming years, but not 20 years, is that a lot of these people will be retiring, and that's going to require the town to replace them with new people. So it's it'll help to, in some ways, give you a finger on a pulse on what the possible headcount requirements are going to be
Yes,
going forward.
yes, it's like all these groups started together, they're all gonna retire together, so, but we'll be ready.
It's not unique to Concord, though. It's pretty
Right,
across the board for most municipalities, from my experience.
yes.
Well, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have a comment or question?
This is a side question or comment.
Mhm.
It's not, but as you were talking about how many are going toward retirement, and I know with hiring, and there's quite a few resignations, right? 27, I think that's about normal for averages. Is that right? Or is that a bit high?
Well, I think it's still probably coming down to some extent. I know it was high for a while there, but now that we've got solid SMT or senior management team folks in place, and we've plugged a lot of the holes, I think we're gonna see that,
Yeah.
level off and probably even still continue to come down a little bit. Otherwise, it's when you look at each department, it's one here, one there.
Mhm.
Really, the biggest group was that DPW group or Public Works rather, for 8 resignations.
Yeah, I know a lot of these positions require experience. And when, just thinking on age alone, have we relationships with universities around or that kind of thing? Is that?
Yes,
Yeah.
and Erin, I can actually speak, I think, a little bit to some of the places we've been posting things lately. But we do have, is it Handshake that we use to get to some of the college groups? I know we've gone to some of the tech schools, places like Wentworth, particularly for trades positions are very, very difficult. Our latest dilemma is trying to find an HVAC person, and I know that this came up literally just yesterday and today in terms of how we can get creative in places we can go. And then, especially with some of the public works jobs, the state unfortunately has made things more complicated with, how to get a CDL license, things for water treatment. It used to be if you could pass the test, you could take the test and get your license to be good. Now you have to do an apprenticeship and all of that. I mean, Joel, I'm speaking to the choir here with water licenses. So that's also just a challenge as well, but especially with the CDL, like I think they have to actually go to a school now. It's
They
like
do.
$8,000, which, we've
Don't
talked
you train
about.
in-house though?
I think
But
we
you
do
have your
some
own-
here, but I honestly don't have a ton of detail on
Yeah.
that,
Hmm.
but it's been a challenge, just those complications and requirements just from the state being difficult for positions that are already difficult for us to get,
It
so.
is. DPW is always a challenge. Sorry.
No, it's true,
It's really, it's hard. And you have double challenges because you have the light plan, so I can
Yes,
imagine that
that's another one
creates
as
its
well.
own, yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Nope.
What I'd like to just suggest, not right away, but I think it would be interesting to take the resignation category and to be able to. When I was in HR, we had a set number of reasons that we were able to track. Compensation, lack of advancement, commute.
Yeah.
But the point of why we did that was so that we'd be able to have an understanding of what were the variables that were creating these resignations.
Have you been doing the exit interviews? I know Kimberly, we talked a while back about that for
Yes.
senior people.
So we're trying to get back into that groove. Aaron's actually got one scheduled for next week, this week.
He hasn't told me when, but
Okay.
hopefully we'll get it on the books.
And we've had a paper form process that now Aaron's actually taken the questions and everything and dumped it into, is it a Google form? or
Microsoft Forms.
Microsoft Forms. So with that, we think we're actually gonna be able to extract and be able to run a lot more reports. So now that we have the extra staffing, we'll be able to hopefully get more on a regular schedule, that everybody, regardless of level, gets an exit interview when they leave. It'll be electronic, and then we can run some reports and then give you guys even better data, plus have that data for ourselves.
I think the data for the town is, has an immense, value. And, obviously for the personnel board, I mean, it's one thing to have resignations because, the people can't get along with the manager.
Right,
It's very different if in fact you've got commuting is the issue.
Yeah.
We understand all of these, but having numerically, quantitative data, I think is what I hope we can strive for.
absolutely.
Okay,
Just one clarifying question on that point, Bill. On the resignations, this includes voluntary or involuntary,
Yes.
so that would be the
That's
other
another, yeah.
data point that is always worth looking at.
absolutely, yeah, good point. Okay, so we're gonna move on to item 4, which is this, PPP 40.
Yes, and I know there's a few folks on the Zoom that, based on the names on the screen, I'm guessing they're here for this. And I'm gonna take a wild guess that Joel might be here for this as well, so I do expect that there might be some questions. So basically, this is taking an update to reflect a new procedure that we're hoping to implement townwide, and it's related to anybody who drives a town-owned vehicle. So there's a system called the driver verification system, and Kate, I don't know if you guys use this in Wayland.
Signing up now.
Excellent,
Yes.
excellent. So essentially it's through Massachusetts licensing, the state, and we're basically able to gather with a signed release, which is part of this policy, as you saw. It used to be, you didn't actually have to have a signed release. They just implemented this, I believe, a year ago, August. But essentially we gather the license number and the birth date and the name of the individual. We key it into the system, and then essentially it does a real-time update every day at midnight to flag anything that's come up in terms of an expiration, a revocation, a suspension. One time I had a surrendered pop-up. It turns out that person actually surrendered their license because they moved to New Hampshire, but that gave me a bit of a panic. I was like, why'd they surrender their license? And basically it will just be to ensure that everybody zooming around in a town vehicle is actually licensed to drive a vehicle. And it helps with safety, liability, all those things. The last thing the town wants to have is somebody getting into a car accident with a cruiser and, oh, the police officer doesn't have a valid license. That would obviously be very bad. So I know that some of the questions that have come up from folks are, is this gonna be like my entire driver's history? Am I gonna, if I get pulled over for a speeding ticket, is the town going to know about it? The answer to that is no. So we would have the capability to pull a driving report with that information, but really the system is just in place to track, to make sure the person has a valid license. That's really all it is. And I will say in my experience, I've used this in my last 3 communities. And my experience with it has been that 97% of the time, the alerts I get are ones to simply say, hey, this license expired. And then I reach out to the individual and they say, oh crap, I forgot to renew. They go and get renewed, and then the system updates again that night. And sure enough, it pops up that their they're all set. So basically, our process would be that when we get something like that, we reach out to the employee, copy the department head, and just say, hey, there's been something that's popped up with the license. You know, please don't let them drive any town vehicles until such time they get the license fixed.
Can the system also give them, hey, in 10 days, your license is gonna go out, why don't you go?
No,
No.
but what we could do, what
That
we
would
could
be
do is.
Calmer.
Right, I mean, it has a sort capability, so you can see the last action, and then you can also see like the expiration date, so you can actually sort by expiration date. So sometimes what I've done is gone in there to see like, okay, in October, it looks like there's 10 licenses that are gonna be expiring, which tells me like, okay, if I get an alert. Cause it'll also tell you if there's a change, so if somebody does what they're supposed to do and renews, it'll also update, and sometimes you go in like, oh, there's nothing here, and then you'll say, oh, yesterday somebody renewed their license, so. Sometimes I like to go and just look ahead at that, so I can be like, oh, if I get one of those alerts, I'm not panicking that like somebody lost their license, it's probably that they just got it renewed.
I totally understand the procedural thing is important, but given that we have folks interested in this, my assumption is that they might be interested in not being out of compliance with their job, right? So if there would be, like you said, to go in and say on a monthly basis, I'm just anticipating a question, but I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, I think it's more, and again, I don't wanna speak for the folks that are, and maybe they don't even wanna speak and they just wanna hear, but you know, my understanding from the few folks that have reached out directly to me. Is there's just concerns about like, is this opening up the door for the town to know everything they could ever want or need to know about my driving? You know, they don't wanna know if I got a speeding ticket, or they don't wanna know if I got pulled over because I had a tail light out, like, it's not that drilled down, it's literally just, as the license, is it valid, has it been expired, has it been revoked, suspended, whatever. And then, of course, the policy addresses already from before what happens if somebody loses a license. And again, there's people that it's a condition of employment, like obviously a police officer has to have a valid license because they have to drive a cruiser. The bulk of our firefighters are most likely gonna be driving a fire truck or an ambulance. Our folks, water, sewer, public works.
Yeah.
But there are certain times where if somebody has an issue, whatever, they could be temporarily reassigned into work that doesn't require driving. And we'll work with those people. It's not like if somebody's license is suspended, it's an automatic termination. There's a process for that. And of course, it also depends on the reason behind why. But the biggest thing is you just wanna say, okay, we'll work with you on whatever your issue is. We just can't have you zooming around in a suspended license. So that's kind of the crux of it.
Does this policy draft include something about it's the obligation of any individual employee to maintain a current license and to renew, timely renew?
I believe that's part of it, or at the very least, it does say that they're
I saw
obligated
at
to
the
tell us
beginning-
if they lose their license.
The purpose is to ensure that employees who operate maintain valid licenses, but it doesn't, I didn't see anything about their obligation to actually do that.
And then there is, under reporting, there is a sentence about failure to report loss of license. They have to immediately let us know. I will say that in my experience, the one or two times I've had where somebody's had an actual suspension or revocation, it's been us calling them in to say, this
Get
flagged
this
on
in,
your
yeah.
license, do you wanna tell us what happened? It's, that's always kind of been the more disturbing thing of why didn't they come and tell us first? Like, if you get jammed up on a Saturday night and you get locked up and they pull your license, it's like, you know, that's happened, but, and this is my fear, I don't wanna think that that's happened at all with anybody driving our vehicles, but there is that possibility that somebody could have had an instance. And then after a few months got it rectified and we just didn't know, and it was all under the, like, we wouldn't know. So, and then again, God forbid that person had any sort of, minor vehicle accident, severe accident, whatever, and then it was found that they had a suspended or revoked or expired license, it just could be really bad, so.
All right. Questions and additional?
So do you have any employees that drive for the town but don't use town vehicles? I'm just sort of wondering if that.
Yes, so that is
Covers them?
included in here, because we do have people, and I went back and forth with, Chris Carmody, our risk management person, and he really felt strongly if they're driving for official business, even if it's not in a town vehicle, that they should have this as well, so we have included that in this policy. I am primarily focused right now on the people that are actually driving the town vehicles. But we do have that situation because I don't think we have a ton of take-home vehicles. And I know we have, well, like Erin, if she drives over to the townhouse for a meeting, technically she can put in for that mileage reimbursement. And then we did definitely have people that are getting actual vehicle allowances, which is pretty much all of the SMT members. So again, I don't have a town car, but I get an allowance because I'm driving all over this town all day, every day. So, those folks are in the system as well.
And how has this been maintained prior to needing this system?
We haven't been checking the licenses at all, so that's why I think sometimes like at least Public Works might have gotten a copy of people's licenses when they started. Okay, it's valid today, the day you're starting work, but there's been no mechanism in place to do it because the police officers can't run licenses either. I mean, they have that ability, but they can't just be running license, like, they have to have a reason to run a license that's not like, hey, we want to make sure, so. So yeah, it's been
So-
literally just on our system that everybody's got a valid license.
And now that an app can sort of normalize it, take care of it, but everybody has to be registered, because the next sheet is this.
Yes,
I
because they have to
sign
authorize us to
yeah.
register them, and that's a new development, like I said, just over a year ago, the state put that in place. I assume there must have been some reason why, but it used to be as long as we had the information, we could just key it and the person didn't have to sign off on
I
being
see.
put into the system, so.
What percentage of town employees, use either town vehicle or personal vehicle with a car allowance? Because that's specific in here that they receive a car allowance.
I wanna say there's maybe 10 or 12 that get the car allowance. Obviously, everybody police drives. I'd say the majority of fire, so it's about 50 something in each of those units.
And only those folks are gonna be asked to go through
Right.
this, okay.
And again, there is another group of people that do drive as part of their duties, but don't have an allowance for a car, but they can get a mileage reimbursement. We are hoping to capture them as well, but again, my primary focus right now is getting those people that are driving the town vehicles. And then again, the system takes care of itself, and then when somebody separates employment, this is another important thing, as part of offboarding, we remove them from the system, because obviously there's no reason for us to track their license, nor should we be tracking their license if they no longer work here. So it become part of our onboarding checklist, or offboarding checklist rather, well, part of the onboarding too, but it'll also be part of offboarding.
What about, for new hires? I did see that there's language in there. I mean, is that
Yep.
part of, like, if you have to
It's
drive
all
a
part
town
of,
vehicle?
yep, it's all part of their paperwork now, so when they
So
start
do you-
working.
Do you check driving history? Are offers contingent upon background checks and?
Yes, they do run a
Running the-
whole motor vehicle background check
Mhm.
report at the time of hire, but then they'll
Yeah.
also be given this release at the time of hire to sign, and then we'll dump that information right into DBS at that time.
I want to make certain I understood Kate's, point is that, I mean, it's my understanding that Corey could have changed, but the Corey is a part of the, employment process, isn't it, in the town?
So we actually do like a full background check through, was it ClearStar? So yeah, we actually do more than just a
And you-
Cory by rote, but then there's also a vehicle check in there, certain positions we run a credit check for, so it depends on the level of position and the type of position, but there is a whole background that would include the driving history if it's somebody that's going to be driving a town vehicle.
But there's no, with a Corey, it's written someplace that that's a part of the hiring process. But you don't, one doesn't have to get a signature in order for.
Right, you can, yes, well, you do have to sign off on a Cory, but we don't actually run Corys except for positions like in recreation, like the part-time positions, things like that. Because anybody that's a full-time, regular employee gets the full background check, which is actually more comprehensive than just the Cory check. But yes, a Cory check through the state of Massachusetts, you have to sign off on that as well. You have to provide photo ID and sign that you're authorized to run the Cory.
The only other comment I have is whether or not the point that was made at the beginning about this isn't intended to track traffic violations or parking or. I mean, does it make any sense that there's actually a provision or a statement that says that, so that there's no doubt as to what is not going to be,
We could certainly add that, or even put it on the form. I know part of the confusion too is the form does reference driver history. But we could certainly tweak that as well,
So-
and make the release itself more clear.
What you are saying though is that the system itself could do that.
It could, we'd have to actually request the driving record, pay a fee for it. I think it's $8 a report. Um,
I thought it was free for municipalities.
oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. think
I've
it
never
should-
actually, that tells you in 17 years, I've actually never run
Yeah.
one. So, it just
I
doesn't come up.
don't think they charge municipalities.
Okay.
So,
But
yeah, so I think then the language in it would be a good idea, because if the system can do it, you know, and somebody got a hold of it, not you folks sitting
Right.
here. You know, just clarify that that would not be, yeah, as Bill said it better than I'm saying.
Yeah, no, we can certainly change that. I think it might be as simple as, authorizing blah, 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 just leave it at status of my license rather than the monitor my driving record.
Hmm.
Because again, it's not really monitoring the record, it's really just that license status to make sure. Now, again, if somebody's flagged, there could be some level of monitoring, like, let's say somebody's license was suspended, we have the discussion, speak with them, and they say, this is what happened, this is my plan, then there may be some level of monitoring, but that would be more on the side of how do we get you back to where you can actually drive and do
Yeah.
your job again, or do we have to reassign you, things like that, but that's almost. That's a whole other process almost, and again, I've only had like 1 or 2 people in all the years I've been doing this that have had those types of infractions, it's always usually, I forgot to renew my license, it expired, and they're like, thank you for the reminder, like, okay, just get it fixed. And of course, now if they're not due for an in-person or picture, or they're just going on their phone and renewing their license, and then they've got it, so, and then at midnight, the system updates, and I get.
Is that what you can do now?
I
Yeah,
think
You
that-
can do renewals online?
Yeah, oh, gosh, yes, unless you need a new picture. You can renew your registration, your
Very
license,
easy.
yeah.
That's
I
good for
can't,
my future.
CDL.
Yeah.
I can't.
have to go in
Because
person.
it's a CDL.
I gotta sit for the registration.
Mhm.
I gotta spend an hour while they wait for my number. I gotta sign all these forms. I can't do it. I have to go in. So that's the CDL. So
And what is a CDL? I'm sorry.
Commercial driver license.
I see, I see. So it's more, you have more that you can do than a simple driver.
You can drive vehicles, we couldn't.
Yes, I
Yes.
cannot, and I'm not trying to.
Although
so-
oddly, firefighters don't need a CDL to drive those.
Really?
That is true. they
Ladder
do.
trucks.
that's surprising.
You need it for a dump truck? Put a big ladder truck, no.
That makes no sense.
So I think
That's the state
Are
for
we
you.
ready for questions? Is everybody
It makes total sense to me.
Yeah, yeah.
to have the system or to what?
Yeah, the system to have, I mean,
All the
I
way.
think, oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
from a risk perspective, I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like the town probably got advice from insurance or risk somewhere along the line that having people out of compliance from a driver's license perspective would probably fall back on the town at some point.
Exactly.
Joe, yeah.
So, my concern is not the driving record, but it is under the requirements for operating town vehicle and DVS authorization. So the third paragraph just mentions, generically, CD holders in Massachusetts must comply with state specific regulations, including maintaining updated medical certifications and adhering to state and order vehicle law. So I have no problem with, following the laws of the state. But the challenge that CDL drivers have to deal with is every 2 years, regardless of how long we've had it, we have to go find a doctor, get certified, make an appointment, get certified, pay a fee, come back to the town, submit a reimbursement, wait for reimbursements, file all that, wait for the check to get cut. And it could be various times. I have to take personal or vacation time to do this, and it's a work-related license. I would not need it outside of my employment. So for years, I've taken my own time, and I'm not the only one, other employees have, that have taken their own time, make an appointment, pay the fee, some cases not even getting reimbursed because health insurance does not cover it, because it's not medical necessity, it's for your employment. And so the paragraph there doesn't say much, I just said that the employee has to do this. And so my request would be that the town, either standardize or, have it in some sort of way that a certified DOT doctor can, you know, can have exams on site at the town. I don't have to take a half a day to go make an appointment, wait for reimbursement. And I've spoken to the doctors that do DOTs and they go, yeah, we go to DPWs, we go to bus unions, you know, we do this. Your town just has to call us and make the provision. So for years, we've done it on our own. So once this policy came up, I thought it was an opportunity to explain that I'm using my personal time and my personal expense to go and do something that is only for my employment at the town. And it makes it challenging at times with our busy schedules. And, you know, I felt like sitting in here for 2 hours was worth it, because if I'm here for the duration of my employment, I have to go 7 more times to renew my DOT. So my request is that there's a streamlined process that we're either given the opportunity during the workday to get the medical, like Bedford Urgent Care. That's what Bedford Public Works employees do. They get a piece of paper, they have an account, they go, they get their DOT and they come back and submit it. Or a doctor's come on site, takes 10 minutes for the inspection. And then, you know, we can move right along and we can be in compliance. So I wanna do all I can be in compliant. Right now, it feels like the onus is on me, and it's continued to be on me from the past. And I'd love to see something change, not just for me, but all for my municipal employees that all have CDLs. Because they're hard enough to get, and they're also challenging to maintain.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
Any other sort of comment, reaction to Joel's?
It's a reasonable request. I mean,
Yeah.
it comes down to, there's different ways the town could address that. I mean,
Right.
either pay for the time off and kind of cover that, or I think those are actually pretty good that there are options out there that would come directly to the employer and do this kind of stuff.
If they're staggered though, and everyone's doing it at a different time, then.
Can you
Voucher at the,
Yeah.
the urgent care sounds like an
Yeah,
easier fix,
yeah.
but I agree, it sounds reasonable.
Which Aaron's actually in the process now of shopping around for a new occupational health provider. Right now, we're using formerly Mount Auburn, which is, you know, practically in Boston. So, this is, I whispered to her, this might be something that maybe we can coordinate with them on. I actually didn't even know there was like a mobile van service until Joel had mentioned it to me. And Kate, I don't know if you were aware of that either, but I'm kind of intrigued by it. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention too, just, you know, I think we should look at this also from an equity situation, because if you're in the Public Works Union, they actually do right now reimburse up to $100 every 2 years for that DOT medical certificate, whereas the water sewer folks and other CDL holders, I don't know what light department does, but they don't get that $100 reimbursement. So I think that's something for us to think through and discuss with, you know, the budget and everything else, because. And probably the $100 is an old number too. I think those exams are probably closer to 125 now.
But if we get the doctor, if he has the account, then we wouldn't need to file all the reimbursement forms.
Exactly, so.
Now, this was on the agenda for review and a vote. So what's the board's thinking with now we have this suggestion that we need to modify or include the kind of points that Joel has made?
Well, I think there were two parts, right? There was one addendum or revision of how it's worded so that it's clear to employees that they're not.
It's just the status.
Yeah, and that seems like an easy fix, right? So with, I mean, I don't think we have to wordsmith here, but with the intention being that that's what would be wordsmithed, right? And Kate's captured it, she knows.
Yeah.
She looks very serious over there. Yeah, yeah.
That's true, we did.
And then, how should we capture, so that next piece, so, and the comments and the reasonableness that we've all agreed is reasonable. That's something different than approving this document, right? Because it doesn't go into the document, so that's another action item, or how should we handle that or capture it?
Well, the question is gonna be, should it be in the document in some capacity?
Oh,
In some-
okay, yeah,
Because then, if it's there, then it's clear as to what the obligation, responsibilities and remuneration or not.
Well, I do feel like it's a different issue than, ensuring that your license
The
is.
requirement.
Right, than, is up to date and not about to expire or has expired or been, then this is more of a medical I mean, I know it's required, when maintaining your CDL, but I think that would need to be done within a separate
yeah, and
process.
I'd agree with that also because from what just you described, it's not handled the same across
Mhm,
departments.
mhm.
And that I think is a serious issue too. So
Right.
there's the issue of making it easier for folks and helping and supporting our employees, but then also to make sure that it's done in an equitable manner. So I think that's a good flag.
And then the other thing I would think about, been down this road before, when you start paying for certifications or medical appointments that are needed, are there other positions in the town that maybe we already do that for, or that if we do this for the CDL drivers, others, I don't know if it's electrical or
Mhm.
maintenance
certifications.
type certifications that could be required. So just try to look at everything holistically would be my advice.
And then Kimberly, you're looking tired a little bit maybe, but maybe that's another PPP that has to be written, right? Is how do we handle certifications and support for recertifying, as Joe just described?
It sounds like it already is eligible for reimbursement, right?
If you're in the union, but we have CDL drivers that are not.
Only reimbursement, oh, you said there's
For
$100.
the DOT medical, so that's the actual exam, when you go to the doctor to get the
Right.
DOT medical exam.
Okay,
you have to
reimbursable
have-
up to $100, that's how it is,
Yes.
and that's
And
what
it's
you were
on your-
saying, Joel,
yes.
is that you can submit for reimbursement yourself, but you don't.
I haven't received it in the past, but I'm hoping.
He's not in the union,
Right.
that's why. he's
I just, you made it
water.
sound like you could submit for reimbursement,
Well,
that's not the case.
I haven't gotten them in the past, so
Okay.
it's been on my own time.
Which may depend on the medical insurance, I don't know, that cover or not cover that.
Yeah,
But the other thing is it's personal time also, right?
Yeah,
So it's time that
Yeah.
people would spend outside of working hours typically, that is their own time.
What I want to ensure, though, is however we sort of continue to discuss this particular point, that there's some action item in terms of what people like Joel can expect from the town, the personnel board, because an issue has been raised. And so what are we gonna do with that, in what time frame? I just want to make certain that we're clear that the expectation that Joel and his colleagues can have on this particular point, and it just doesn't get lost, that's all.
So, and you're working on something already to look at the place for medical reviews.
Mhm.
But this is expanding that look, right? Because it's, in Joe's framing, it's all, what do they call it? Certifications.
right,
Right, which is different than just the medical part
Right.
too. So how, that would add some time on your work
Mhm.
too, right?
yes.
So,
Okay, you've got three things. You've got the license itself, you've got medical if required for the license,
And then the
and then you
reimbursement.
have the time off.
and the time, yeah, that's
Right.
the other point, yeah.
So I think, and then looking at it across, all of the job classification plans and thinking about where would that apply to any of these roles.
So I think in terms of tonight, if we could at least get a vote on the policy with the amendment that we'll go through and remove the references to monitoring driving record and simply say, the references to monitoring the status, we can fix that. Make that change in the authorization form. That would be good because then we can at least be working on getting the signed forms and getting licenses tracked, while we can then attack these other pieces.
That's, I have a problem with that
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah, I think
I
that
agree.
sounds fine, and I think that, we'll put some kind of objective within what do you want to say, because it's a lot of work, and I don't want it to be like, is it a new PPP, Kimberly, or is it, oh, Kimberly's got her hand raised?
Yeah.
And
Yes,
that's
Kimberly.
Jeff, and I don't know if Scott too, but Jeff wants
Oh,
to
okay.
speak, I think,
Yeah.
as well.
Hi, Jeff
Hi.
Morosky,
I,
Concord, York's Water and Sewer Superintendent. One thing I wanted to raise is possibly in addition to this policy, where it gets a little bit sticky, as Joel was indicating, the CDLs are a little bit more complicated than your standard Class D license that's needed for your regular passenger vehicle. It's possible that the requirements of licenses can change based on vehicles, and we had gone through this relatively recently with a new Vector that we had taken on, and it has a large carrying tank on it that requires a certain endorsement. So there's a possibility for licensure requirements to change, so there should be some flexibility in the policy that allows employees to attain the necessary licensures if the requirements were to change.
Good point, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I
So,
raised
and
my
that-
hand. I raised my hand because I saw Jeff was standing on his head trying to get it. But it sounds to me like this is a more comprehensive look is needed. I don't know, Jess, about you or Aaron or maybe Kate as well, but I'm not clear exactly which positions in the town require ongoing recertifications around licensure. And so I think Joe's idea that we do a holistic look and make this decision based on a data-driven basis of information is a really good one. And Liz, you asked the question specifically of me as to whether this would be a PPP or not. And I think it would depend. You know, we don't have PPPs today for every type of license that there is or every type of certification that there is. But after we look at this holistically, we may find that there's a value in that. So I'd hold that out for review and comment after we've done a global look.
Good point. What then the conclusion then, at least from Joel's, the short term, is that it's business as usual in terms of how the responsibility sort of rests with the employee and the reimbursement. All of that that's not gonna change until we're able to get a new policy, a new proposed policy on the table for us to review and perhaps to approve. I stated that correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, I agree.
Is the town on a calendar year for open enrollment
No
benefits?
fiscal year,
fiscal year?
except for the Medicare, that's calendar year.
Yeah, I was just thinking of whether or not it made sense to try to, that January 1 was the new date for benefits. The timing on something like this could have worked, but doesn't sound like it would.
So what I think what, just to restate, we need to take a look at the proposed PPP 40 with the amended points. And that I'd like to be able to, so I think in order to point it, I'll entertain a motion for PPP 40 as stated.
I'll make a motion that we approve this PPP 40 with the two revisions. The first being just what you just summarized around
We're moving the monitoring. the
removing
driving
monitoring and making that clear. And the second around some recognition of change in requirements. I don't know how to do that, though. We haven't really talked that one through. Does that mean there's a time after the change is required, we allow X number of months or weeks or something, or how would that work? Because then the state must do that too, right? If they're changing a license process, then they must give some time for accommodating that shift. Is that
You would think.
right? I'm looking at the.
And like the very.
Well, I think his point, I'm sorry, was it Jeff?
Yes.
Jeff, sorry, was that like for the Vector truck, I mean, I'm familiar with what these giant Vector trucks, and they require a specific endorsement in order to even drive the vehicle. Is that, am I
Yeah.
understanding that correct, Jeff?
Yes.
And so that's a different case than the state changes the licensure. Like if they have this vehicle and they need to use it, then one of their employees must have this endorsement in order to use it. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's what he was getting at.
Is that, Jeff, could you confirm?
I think that was appropriately stated. The two endorsements that really apply to water and sewer are air brakes and tanker endorsement.
But
More-
more the change, like with a new endorsement requirement, right? Was your bigger concern that there be, to the extent that an endorsement requirement is added with respect to a particular vehicle, that we have to build in time to get it? I mean, obviously, if you're hired for a job that requires a CDL with a particular endorsement, the expectation is that you have it or you're not driving until you get it. But if there's a regulatory revision that leads to a new requirement, then there needs to be some time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the latter was the point, but I guess I was wrong.
I think that is I thought it was the point too, I guess. Yeah.
Joel, you've got comment?
So may I clarify, so the town buys a new piece of equipment. We're not licensed to operate it.
Ah,
The town wants us to license it. As it stands now, I gotta take personal time to go and apply for that license so that I can drive the town equipment. And my contention is I wasn't hired under that premise. I don't mind getting any license. You want me to get a crane license? I'll get anything.
yeah,
But again, I just don't want all the onus on me to take my time. And then I have to go and get all reimbursed, so if
Right.
we get a piece of equipment, I would love to operate it, but support me to get through the process.
But that's not what this policy is even addressing, really. This policy is saying you just have to be able, you can't operate that until you have the licensure that.
Just about driver's license,
Yeah, that's
this isn't
good.
even getting
Yeah.
into endorsements and
Right.
tankers and heavy equipment license. This is just a basic driver's license / CDL, but even with the CDL, somebody could potentially lose the CDL, but we could still plug them into a different role at Public
Right.
Works,
Right.
let's say. They could drive like one of the small plow trucks, not like the big, it's really, we just want people to have a valid driver's license. But at the same time, it does track, because when you enter in the license number, it'll tell you if it's a CDL or not, and it will give you a separate column for the CDL status, but.
all right, so if I can clarify, Joe, you go ahead, you
No, go
know
ahead.
more about what you're talking about.
No, I think after listening to the conversation, it seems like the points that Joel are bringing up are really not related to even what this policy is intended to cover, which is just having a valid driver's license to even be able to have the option to operate, whether it's a normal four-door sedan or a
Right.
truck that requires a CDL,
Good points though they are.
which is different.
Yeah.
So-
Right, I
And
can't
it
drive
should
a
be.
truck without my medical certificate.
Right.
Right,
Right,
so,
right.
but
So
if
you
you look at
address
the
them
first
differently.
purpose and scope, it's not just a driver's license, it's specifically a commercial driver's license.
If
Right, and
necessary.
so I think not to your first points, which I think we're handling separately. But Jeff, to your point that there's an endorsement on new equipment so that it can be used. How is an endorsement and a driver's CDL are different? Is that what we're saying? We're
Yes.
saying that an endorsement is not covered under this policy, but it's
So
only
may-
about the time and the money to get it? The endorsement that should be handled, and that would be handled under what Erin's been. Well, we're assuming expanded into.
Right, right.
But is that what you mean? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I mean,
the
to
other-
get the basic CDL, you do have to have that medical exam every 2 years, so that does tie in without the medical
but the
exam.
endorsement is
But the
not. a
endorsements
medical.
are, no, they're extra add-ons, like you have a tanker endorsement, and these guys can definitely speak to the different endorsements a lot better than I can. But that's where it then would go into kind of this idea that Joel's brought up, that like, if there's this piece of equipment that requires a certain endorsement to operate it beyond my basic CDL, then
Okay, and
what's that process?
so, so the endorsement is not covered under this app that you'll be using?
No,
to
this
check
is just, does somebody
Okay,
have a
so that-
valid
that
driver's
helps me
license?
understand.
That's
All right,
all I
sorry.
need to know at this
All right,
point.
so that's then a separate and reasonable comment and concern,
Mhm.
but it just doesn't follow into this PPP 40. So the
Right.
one, so I was the one making the motion, right? So the motion then would be that that I think we should accept this PPP 40 with the one change, that it's more clear that the system won't be used to investigate
Records,
Records.
just the
and
status.
just the status of the license,
Mhm.
that it's in compliance. And with that, I would recommend that we approve PPP 40.
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded,
And
and then
then
we
vote.
move ahead and approve PPP 40 with the
I,
comments that have been.
with the
Okay.
comments, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, all in favor, Liz?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Jay?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Okay. All
Thank
right,
you, and then I'll
but what I
clean
wanna
this up
do,
and send it to you, and you can put Wayland's logo.
I know. I was appreciative of the work that you did. And I'm shamelessly going
But
to.
I-
Sharing is caring.
before we move on, I wanna make certain though, that the minutes reflect, and there's an understanding as to what can people like Joel and others who are in this, what can they expect from the town and when?
I think the what is us pulling together all the information on the different license requirements and or endorsement requirements, and then figuring out, you know, what makes sense. Obviously, there'll be some bargaining obligations. There's some certain things that we could decide to make part of a policy that will reimburse, that we could just do, for our non-union folks. Obviously, anybody union, if we're gonna give them like, hey, we'll give you $100 for this or whatever, then that would require bargaining, but if it's giving them money, I don't think that would be an issue if we have to. If we have to say, hey, can we side bargain this? But I do think we need to look at that comprehensive look though, as Joe indicated, because there's a whole different myriad. And then again, it's like, what's a license we wanna pay for that's, you know, something that's nice for that person to have versus what's truly required to have, what's required for the job. There's a bunch of different things.
So.
We're
when do
happy
you
to
think-
start tackling that. I just don't know how quickly the turnaround will be, but I also obviously wanna talk to the SMT members that are directly affected, you know, Public Works Director comes to mind, because obviously he oversees a lot of people that have a lot of different licenses. Yeah, we gotta get everybody together and start discussing that, so.
I wonder if one way to approach this would be that we have note in the minutes that in the January meeting, we have an update
January sounds reasonable for an update.
on this issue.
That's good.
Is that too loud?
Joel, you raised-
Too loud?
I love it.
Joel, you raised a really, really good point. Like, are you, in terms of what you're reading from the board, is this an approach that seems reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, if the members here weren't here in 10 years and somebody read this, purpose and scope and requirements, they might say, you know, if you all weren't here, then they might say, well, you have to do this on your own, because there's nothing here in this paragraph here that says, you know, your employer will support you or will work with you. So everybody in this room seems to be very agreeable and easy, but in 10 years, when you aren't
You're
all
still
here, and this paragraph is read, it says the onus is on you as an employee to do it all on your own, then there'll be no record other than some minutes that were submitted, comments that I would have to go and find from 2024.
So Kimberly, that might be a thing to remember, for us to remember and think about in terms of maybe this needs a PPP.
Or it's possible we might wanna update this PPP once we know more,
Yeah.
right? It's-
Yeah.
It's possible we will find a place for it here, but
Mm,
it's, you know, as a new issue, to me, it makes sense that we would revisit this
yeah,
with a fuller understanding and more information in January, and not to say that we're going to abandon it, right? I think if the intention is to come back to it.
yeah.
Good point. Good. What's the-
Yeah.
From my perspective, you could certainly add that to the January update.
Great.
Okay. All right, well, there was, Jeff's input, Joel, we really thank you for, taking the time to hang with us and to make those points. This is really the only way, I mean, this is one of the ways, but in terms of really being able to have a meaningful, personnel board accomplishing and looking at issues that affect the town employees on something which is vitally important to these individuals, just even doing their job. I mean, I hope it comes across that the personnel board is supportive of making certain that we look and address and we get data in order to add additions and deletions, whatever. Okay.
Right.
All right, well, let's move on to classification actions.
Yes.
Right, we're gonna tag team on these. I think I'm doing 3 of them and Aaron's doing 1 of them. So first up, I believe, is the chief information officer. So this was the position formerly held by Jason Bulger, who's now the light plant director. As part of that, it was decided that the whole broadband piece would go with Jason to that light plant position. That's where it made the most sense. So now we're looking at reclassing this down a grade to a chief information officer versus chief technology. And you'll see in this draft job description that all the references to the broadband have been removed. So Aaron and Kimberly went through and did the position rating and all of that. And once you remove all the broadband responsibilities and pieces, that just brought it down 1 grade from an 18 to a 17. So we're just looking to get your approval on the title change and the grade 17 placements on the plan.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, so entertain a motion to approve the chief information officer job description.
I move, we approve the job description for the chief information officer position.
Second. All right, moved, seconded, all in favor, Liz?
Yes.
Yes.
John? Yes. Joe? Kate?
Yes.
And Bill, yes, okay.
Moving along. So back again is the Emergency Communications Center manager. I think this is now the 3rd time we brought this one in as many months. Essentially, as we delved into our process with interviewing requirements, things we really needed, it became clear that there were some key pieces that really needed to be added into this description, which did result in a 1 bump pay grade after, again, the position rating and all of that was gone through. And the big addition basically is this issue of oversight, administration, and maintenance and repair of all of the actual public safety communications infrastructure. So as you'll see further down, there's equipment all over town, pretty much, that is related to emergency communications, and also emergency planning, et cetera. So adding that very high level of responsibility to this did result in a 1 grade bump for this position. So hopefully this is the last time we bring this one before you. But we are looking for those new additions tonight on the equipment and safety maintenance requirements and the bump for a grade 12 to a 13.
All right, thank you.
Just have 1 question on this one. I'm curious, in terms of leading a team or being a manager of the actual communication center. And I would imagine that's a different skill set than the technical knowledge that would be required for maintenance and repair of equipment. Is there any concern about the skill set of either the person in the role or finding the right person to be in the role by changing this job?
We do feel that the candidate we've identified that's going through the backgrounds now fits all of these things. So that is not a concern for us at this point.
Any other questions or comments?
I have 1, under education experience and special requirements, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice is the first thing. It doesn't seem to align with the needs of the role. I'm wondering how that fits in.
Sure, so basically all of those things, criminal justice, fire, emergency management, public safety, those are all, you know, areas that overlap with this. Obviously, the dispatch center is a joint dispatch center. We dispatch police, fire, everything out of that. So having some working knowledge or education and background in the criminal justice field or the fire science field is just gonna essentially augment the position and what they're gonna be doing, as well as the other items listed there in terms of supervisor experience, et cetera.
Does that answer your question, Ruth?
Okay, so I think what I have to do is understand better what criminal justice masters is it in criminal justice means?
Bachelor's.
Bachelor's.
Oh, bachelor's, yeah. Okay,
I had a question that was different from yours. I don't know if you wanted to.
You're gonna let
discuss
dismiss
first.
that or reboot on you,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Continue, yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
nice.
So I have to pay attention to that. Now I got this screen and yes. Yeah, so a lot of our police officers actually have criminal justice degrees. It's up and coming, if not already there, program that, again, a lot of public safety professionals decide to go and get that degree. Again, it helps augment a lot of things in terms of the real skills on the job, coupled with the formal education component.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I had a question about, one of the things that I think I struggle with is, trying to modify a job for a candidate versus the job that, you know, the requirement that we need. And I'm not saying that that's what you do, I'm just trying to understand was the maintenance piece something that you needed when you first sort of jumped into, or developing the job description, or was it something that came about because you met this candidate and either's fine, I was just
Right,
curious
I think
about
it
the
is
thought
actually a
process.
combination of the two. I think we didn't realize exactly how much this was key and really needed to be in there until we started delving into going through our interviews and really drilling down and meeting with the different candidates and really getting a handle. Again, this is a brand new created
Yeah,
role. And it's also, I think, foreseeing down the road, if we are able to get a new public safety facility, for example, there's gonna be a lot involved there with either buying new equipment, updating equipment, moving
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah.
That was a thought that just hadn't been on anybody's radar as well, about like what happens when we get this new center, if we get this new center, so. That was a piece of it.
And I just noticed one more thing. On the education, experience and special requirements, can you remind me the non-smoker?
Yes, police and fire officers hired after, I believe, 1980 are not permitted to smoke.
Never knew that.
And so we treat, even though this is a dispatch
Wow.
position, they treat the dispatchers the same as the other public safety, so.
It is interesting.
And also, we just went through the PPP 40 about not just tracking driver's license, but this says with a clean driving record.
Mhm.
So that's how you track it when there's a new hire.
Right, so when
But
the
you're
person's
not
hired, they
having-
go, exactly, right, so you can be
Yeah.
clean, have a great driving record, valid license on that day, but then after this, I mean, again, we would be checking the record, but they could let their license expire and we would.
Well, but the clean, like you had said, nobody stopped for a tail light, it would be checked and that sort of thing, right? That also would make it a not clean driving record, wouldn't it? Or a speeding ticket or something like that. So now, I mean, you only have the right to do that now at hiring point.
Yes,
Background check on hire is.
Background check
complete.
isn't, okay. So that would be a clean driving record as part of the background check.
right,
Okay, all right.
That would be, and you're suggesting we actually add that phrase, correct?
Yeah, I'm wondering how, I mean, that sort of hangs out there now after our last discussion for me, but I don't know how
Yeah.
you wanna handle that.
this is
'cause it must
probably
be
in
on
every
others, too.
single job description.
Right.
Kimberly, I know you and Magnolia went through them all not
Yeah.
too long ago, so. And it's probably one of those things that's in there that we reserve the right to pull the record, but again, with the system now, you have to have the signed authorization, so even if we said, hey, we have a suspension, we want to run your driving record, we're gonna have to get the signed authorization. Again, this is where it's sort of that gray area of condition of employment, and
Okay.
this one's a little unique though, because, well, presumably they are gonna be driving around town, you know, for the equipment pieces and things like that, trainings, things like that, but it's not as clear cut for dispatchers as it would be with a police officer, firefighter, water, sewer, people that are, regularly driving the vehicles. That's where the condition of employment is a lot more clear than with this position, which is primarily based in the dispatch.
I feel like I've gotten into nitpicking now, so I don't wanna do that, but
That's okay, they're good questions.
the other-
It all
the
relates.
with this position, the other broader question I have is, there's a lot of discussion around the 250th and all of the anniversary events and potential violence that could come to town. It's timely to have this position in place and the equipment and everything in place, and that's what the goal is. Is that part of your discussions? I don't know how seriously to take these.
I feel like the 250th has been part of every discussion. Here we are, we're bringing up the 250th, the personnel board, it's touching
Yeah.
everything and everyone
Yeah.
everywhere, but, yes, those are all, the public safety's had a multitude of meetings, I think they're meeting at least once a week with the different groups in the planning, but obviously making sure the perimeter is safe and how communications will work. We already have like terrible Wi-Fi in the center as it is, how's that gonna work when we bring all, a million people potentially into town, so yeah, it's got some far-reaching effects for sure.
Okay, I'm not gonna get off track. Okay, thank you very much. I will worry about those things on my own.
Yes.
All right, so we are at a point of entertaining a motion for approval.
I motion to approve the changes to this new position that are redlined and changed. Oh, the last one is the new position. This is an update of, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I motion to approve the updates in this.
Second,
Second.
all right. Moved, seconded, all in favor, Kate,
Yes.
Jill, John,
Yes.
Bill, yes, okay.
Community engagement.
All right, this one's me. So we have the community engagement manager, which is actually a new role for the recreation department. And this role will be assisting the rec director to grow their brand, communicate with the community, by doing things, organizing events, managing marketing campaigns, coordinating community engagement initiatives. Also managing their online community presence with an understanding of their mission and how they partner with the town to bring health and wellness and play forward through their programs and events. They will manage the rec commission meetings and they'll be lead on partnerships and community facing work. The rec commission is also supportive of this role and they're pretty excited about it. Our factor analysis brought this one in as a grade 6.
Grade 6 exempt position.
Exempt position,
So
correct?
this is a brand new one?
It is.
Nice.
Where did these responsibilities fall previously? Many of them, I know from living here, are being done now, like what?
I think probably
Some-
Lee, right?
A lot, basically all hands on deck, all over, whoever can do it, and I think it is getting done and getting done well at the moment, but. The idea is that recreation is constantly growing, the demand for programs, we've added new spaces, and with all of that. Like recreation is run basically as a revolving fund, right? So it's sort of like, I hate to say it's a business, but that's kind of essentially in layman's terms what it's like, so money in, money out. So this position will help with a lot of the marketing and getting programs out there to then get participants to sign up, which brings in the money, which allows the program to run. So it's somebody that really needs some dedicated focus, and this does tie in as well to the overall goal from the board about branding across town. Like this is gonna bring some branding to Concord Recreation and really focus on that marketing and branding piece and building programs and getting the word out there about our programs.
Okay, thank you, any other
I wish we
comments?
had one.
I do have, so that, the center, Concord Rec Center downtown.
On stone.
Hunch, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it seems really well used, like it's constantly in use.
It's too small, really.
So is there, so this role is, when you said like signing folks up and ensuring, that they're generating funds that will cover their costs and that sort of thing. are they looking to expand the programs that they're doing with this role? or-
Yes, for example, we have Giroux Park now, right? So I know there's been talk about doing, I think it's a nature, and I apologize to Lee wanted to be here tonight, but she and DJ, our Assistant Recreation Director, are down at the NERPA conference, which is the National Recreation and Parks Conference this week, so that's why they can't be here, so I'm like pinch hitting. But you know, there's been talk about doing, I think it's like a nature walk or a nature program for kids down at Giroux, because you know, they're looking to increase those non-athletic program opportunities, things for like handicap and ADA programming, accessibility programming. You know, I know they tossed out the idea of like yoga under the pavilion, pickleball. We met with a pickleball group just last week and figuring out how to get that formalized,
really.
yeah.
Pickleball.
Yes,
You can be both.
So, you know, yes, there's always programs, and then also BD has, you know, we use their space, they run programs, we run programs, but there's the whole, you know, aqua fitness. This will kind of help with all things recreation, of which BD, even though they're a separate enterprise fund, BD is still part of recreation and their programming and getting the marketing and the word out there as well, so.
Any other, comments, questions?
And the other thing too is this position is obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but it will be fully supported by the revolving accounts.
Yeah.
This does not hit your operating budget, general fund monies. It's also, all of the positions in recreation are paid and supported from the revolving account. That's why when you look at your budget book, it says recreation $0.
Mm.
It's not that we don't spend $0 on recreation. They have their revolving account and they self-sustain.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval of this.
I can make a motion to approve the new community engagement manager position.
All right, second.
A second.
All right, thank you, Liz. Moved and seconded, all in favor, Kate,
Yes.
Bill, yes? Bill?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
very good.
The last one, so program director for childcare services. This is a part-time, position that will be assisting over, both with carousel and the after-school programs. So right now we have one, it's past the chart, because this is a
Yeah.
fixed comp chart. I thought it was missing too, and then I kept scrolling. If you scroll, it's there. So essentially, we've had, our director of the Child Care Services Program, which is Anita Hill. She's been here for a very long time. That program has grown exponentially, particularly once we've taken on the after-school programming, which I believe only took place a few years ago. But so basically, the program expanded exponentially, but staff time did not. So this is gonna be somebody that will be part-time to assist the director and fill in those gaps, because she just simply can't cover all of the clerical and administrative duties and work and scheduling, and this person will be able to pinch hit if there's a site director that is either out sick, off, whatever. So this will basically be a supplement to the director, and again, it's a much needed position given the growth, particularly with the after school program being brought on.
All right, any questions or comments? I have one in regarding sort of the usage of titles. Um. And I don't think there is any kind of proven usage, but what struck me when I read this is that a director, program director, so you got the word director, reports to a manager. That just,
That seems.
in my
backwards. Yeah.
lexicon of experience, just doesn't seem logical.
Yeah.
So what does one do? Well, one can keep it as is. Another is you change the word so that you don't use director. I don't know to what extent the town has an interest in trying to be consistent, but I mean, I think it would be important to have some consistency of how job titles are layered. This one just sticks out as
Coordinator.
it just doesn't make sense. I mean, and to me, anyway.
I think it's a fair point. I think for non-exempt, it would be directly just kind of an odd title. But
Yeah,
I don't know the town as well as you guys.
Child services manager, yeah.
So, I mean, from my experience, everybody wants to be a director. And therefore, people are attracted to job openings many times simply by the words, the title.
Right.
And that drives a lot of the recruiting effort. But this seems like a situation that we don't have, one wouldn't have to use the director title here.
yeah.
It's just,
Well, if you look at the supervisory responsibilities, they are doing what is directed for them to do by the child care service manager. So it puts that hierarchy in clear review there. But director, yeah, has always in my experience been above a manager, so.
so again, my only suggestion is title.
Well,
Uh,
and maybe, you know, given that the childcare services manager, I'm assuming here, was established and created back when it was just the carousel program. That might have made sense, but maybe now that does warrant maybe a title change, and maybe the childcare services manager becomes the
Yeah.
childcare services director, and this is a program director manager under it. I don't know if Anita ever had a title change for that, and again, she's been with us, I think, at least 20 years, and again, that's grown from just carousel to
Yeah.
all of these other before and after school based on the tremendous need.
So
here
her
for-
role was, I'm sorry, I wanna make sure I get the right term, the salary grade was was changed in the last review. But I'm assuming, right, if her role had expanded.
I'm honestly not sure, and Kimberly, I don't know if you know off the top of your head if that position that Anita Hill has was upgraded at all.
I'm sorry, I
Not
don't
sure.
know that.
Yeah, I'm actually looking now to see what pay grade it is on the plan.
And you do
I
know
believe
that,
it's
at
a
least for
nine.
me in this room, when you hear Anita Hill, it takes a natural.
Understood.
Her name is the first thing I remembered. I was like, oh, I'm never gonna forget your name.
So let's give her a higher title.
Having the other options, just brainstorming, thinking in my head where you guys were chatting about alternative titles that may or may not work. Associate specialist lead
Oh,
are different ways to get at something like this, possibly.
Yeah, you know, Erin, you'll have to help me remember, we did talk about this title as a director. It's on the miscellaneous schedule, which is separate and apart. And Erin, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we look up to see if anyone else was in the title, and there was someone else in the title within the town, right?
I don't remember. I do remember we've looked at it. I don't remember off the top of my head.
And I was thinking, since we had someone in the title, we just left it as was, but clearly a director reporting to a manager is not ideal. Especially is this not a limited status on the miscellaneous schedule, right?
Yeah, it's on the miscellaneous schedule. I think it's 19 hours a week.
Yeah.
10 months a year, exactly.
All right, so what we're at is whether or not we want to approve this particular job description as a director, or we want to propose, well, we can't,
but if we don't approve it, then you can't fill it, and you need to
Right.
fill it.
Yes.
So if we can approve it with a caveat, but then you would have to agree to the caveat, and I'm not sure that you guys are ready to do that either. Cause now it's looking like, oh, we've put the tiles, they're all gonna fall, right? Oh, this one, and then Anita's.
Yeah.
see, I think, and again, this may be just me, but I think having a hierarchy of position titles as it represents the organizational differences.
I think that was
Yes.
part of what GovHR did too, Bill, right? Was look at titles and
Yeah.
a lot of this big work to look at all the job descriptions has included that
I
for the
think
most
so,
part,
yeah.
right? So.
My
So this seems like an
recollection,
anomaly.
forgive me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, my recollection was, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this was before my time, but did GovHR look at the miscellaneous schedules, or did they focus themselves on the regular schedules?
I don't think they. I don't think they did look at the miscellaneous schedules. I think they were just
No.
looking at the regular,
Therefore,
Cause there is actually under general recreation,
Yeah.
if you scroll down, there is a program director there
Yeah.
too, and I'm honestly not sure what those roles are. Even though recreation is my division, I'm honestly not even sure who the program directors are within general recreation.
okay, so I do wanna just say that in the end, this is a really helpful comment, but also Bill is giving you a lot more work now. To do all those things, so, you know, but it's the right thing to do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
these titles do mean something, and so, yeah. But we're trying to be helpful.
No, I get it, and again, I feel like first and foremost, you should probably be looking at that child services manager, cause again, I have a feeling it was made manager back
Yeah.
when it was
Yeah.
only carousel.
Yeah, especially
Now
if GovHR
it's-
didn't go over the miscellaneous
Right.
that Kate said, then it
So
wouldn't
for-
have been reviewed.
Excuse me. So from a recruiting standpoint, you have candidates
Yes,
for this job.
Would they walk away if it wasn't named director?
as long as the pay doesn't change, which I don't see how or why it would, I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
So one thing we could do as a board, I mean, just off the top of my head, is that we approve this position description with a strong encouragement to have the town rethink or reevaluate or reassess the type.
Of the miscellaneous schedule, full stop, right? Because there are other
Yes.
conditions, there are other positions on the miscellaneous schedule that have the same problem.
Right.
Right.
So that's one
Yeah.
alternative.
Can I ask how many, do you know offhand how many positions are on the miscellaneous schedule? Is this gonna be a huge lift?
It won't be a huge lift, it's about a page and a half, and again, part of that is the summer programs, which
Alright.
seem pretty hierarchical, right? You have your direct camp director, assistant camp director, supervisors, coordinators, then there's a big chunk that's swim and fitness. Which again, it's mostly like safety instructors, head swim coach, assistant swim coach, so when you look at these. For childcare, there's assistant group leader, assistant teacher, lead teacher, site coordinator, now this proposed program director. And then for general recreation, we have interns, nurse, I don't even know who the rec nurse, I think they have a summer camp nurse, that's what that is. BD member services assistant, office clerk, office assistant, inclusion aide. Private program instructor, program assistant director, and then there's level 1 and level 2 supervisors, so it's not a ton. And again.
Sorry, I just want for the record that, it could be a ton and it would still be the right thing to do. Right, because the titles need to be looked at, so I don't want that to be. You know, I am also apologetic that there's more work that we're proposing for you, and I understand, I want you to recognize that we recognize that, but I don't think that's the reason not to do or to do,
Yeah, sure.
okay?
I hear you.
And again, I'll have my rec team.
Yeah.
Cause they know, they understand their
Yeah,
hierarchy,
yeah.
who reports to who, and they, I'll say, hey, tell me what title changes you suggest, and. We can easily get that done, I think.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion, or what does the board want to do? What's your motion? Does somebody have a motion to present?
I'll take a shot at it. So a motion to approve the program director, child care services job description as written with strong recommendation to the town to remove director from the title and replace it with a more appropriate word that would be reflective of the fact that it's non-exempt and a part-time position, and also to make sense of the manager being titled manager.
I can second that.
I think she actually got that all.
That's impressive, John.
That's why we pay him the big bucks here for
That's
that work.
great, that's.
Longest motion ever, so I use it.
So, all in favor, Kate?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent,
yes.
thank you, everyone.
No, I think it's a good discussion. I think there's some value, to re-examine what's been proposed. So, okay, we're on to, the next one, which is the, discussion of the personnel board charge and timeline. All right, so we have, Liz and I have been in communication with Mark Howell, who wasn't able to join us tonight. In which he is working with the select board chair, Mary Hartman, to have this charge presented at the December select board meeting.
I think
it's
it's
December
two,
now. I thought it
yeah,
was
they had to
November
push
4th.
it.
Okay, so we're on for, okay.
Yeah, I think it's that first week in December, don't they, they have 2
Yeah,
months,
I guess they
right?
do in December, right, so I think it's the first one.
Okay.
So I look back on the minutes, we have not at this time approved the personnel board charge for presentation purposes to the select board. So,
And I think last time we discussed it, one of the things was that we would go and talk with Carrie, and we
Right,
did,
and
and
we
she
did,
was in
right.
agreement with it, she'd seen. And particularly with the objectives, but overall, she said, oh, I've been watching the charter and everything, so I think that piece is a true.
correct, good point, that's a good point. So are we ready to move to accept the personnel board charge as it was presented and discussed at our last September meeting?
I believe you were gonna circulate a clean copy just for clarity.
Good point. So we will need to do that, because that hasn't been done. So that,
So given that we've been pushed to December now too,
We-
you
we have
certainly
time
a
to-
clean copy
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
November.
Right, so that'll-
So I do wanna just clarify, so the comments that are in this unclean.
Dirty report.
But, and a lot of them I see my initials there. But anyway, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole there, but what I'm talking about really is the governing documents, and I think we did have some discussion whether we have to go back to 1921 or not.
Yeah.
And there was some reasoning behind that, and I can't remember what it was, but I think it was some references, but more up to date, documents. Is that right? I mean, you have the 2024 personnel bylaw, that's good, right? Was there anything else, Kate? Do you
Well, I mean, that is our governing document. I mean, that is our. new
The 21?
bylaw. No.
No, the
one that
24.
that was just passed at town meeting, so I
Yeah.
don't see why we'd need to reference historical documents, because that's a historical document at
Yeah.
this point, it's not actually,
Not actually going.
that's how I.
It's not government.
the only thing that I'm thinking about as we're having this discussion is that, I don't know how many of you follow Heather Cox Richardson. She writes a blog every day. She puts down everything that with footnotes. So that it's clear as to what particular document, what particular conversation, what particular, whatever supports. So I don't think we have to be Heather Cox Richardson, but I'm just, and I'm happy that we decided not to include 1921 town bylaw, because that's.
Well, she is particularly a historian, so she would do that.
Yeah.
But, if we come back to our document, let's look at the first the first sentence does indicate was established by the town bylaw in 1921. So now I'm stuck, because you could say it's referenced there, we're an old and recognized personnel board. But then do you have to have the reference to this? I'm talking myself back into leaving.
I like it, I would leave it, but
Yeah.
I would think I might reverse historical order.
There you go.
And put it at the bottom.
Okay.
That's a good suggestion. Sure.
Well, in the first I mean, do we have to say reference when it was established? Couldn't we just, no, I guess we.
I think-
Well, the
I
whole
think-
thing
I
is
think we do.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know, we could bring it up to all the way up to date and reaffirmed in the Concord Town Charter approved in May 1952. Established in the town bylaw, reapproved in the charter, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
the
it
new
does give us
bylaw.
history, yes. Yeah.
Then we could say the 2024 bylaw.
Good idea. You'll do that?
Oh, great.
But
Sure.
we do that in the last sentence, the last revision of the personal bylaws approved.
There we
at town
go.
meeting, so it's already there, we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have I don't have a strong feeling either way, keep it or not keep it, it's history and I think it.
It's a historical town, somebody outside of Concord said, oh, so do you like all that revolutionary stuff? And I said, I have to. I'm not living in Concord. part of the, and they started saying, was it in your mortgage agreement? So it's just a mortgage agreement. Yes, it is. But therefore, I'm with the first paragraph. All right, I like Josh. Just reverse the order. So
Yeah.
we're,
Most recent.
yeah. We're historical, but we're up to date.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Liz, does that then satisfy?
Yeah, I
All of the
think,
points you've-
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And we.
I don't mind taking this and putting it clean, sending it to
Okay.
you, Bill. You make sure.
Okay,
And
and
then
then
we can
because Mark is requesting.
Right.
That too. so-
Okay, is that all right? And then we will review it though at November.
Exactly.
Yes,
Meeting.
review and vote, and that'll be good, because Mark in theory will be here
Yeah,
for the November
yeah.
meeting too, and I
All
feel
right.
like he'll wanna opine, and his feedback is good, given that he's on.
Okay,
Yeah. That sounds good.
so,
So I make a motion that we create a clean copy of the personnel board charge. And have that ready for our November meeting,
Which is
when
November
we will
13th, by the
vote.
way.
November 13th. When we'll vote to approve as a committee.
okay.
Does that mean we need to circulate one more time before, or are we
Yeah, I think so.
ready? Yeah, all right,
Because it's
so
gonna change.
we'll send it to, but actually, it can be just part of the packet, right? And that's the circulation, doesn't get a second
Yeah.
round from
Yeah.
everyone, okay, all right.
Okay.
I didn't finish that motion, did I? Shoot, all right, yeah,
be there.
no, we
I don't-
don't, right, because we're not voting.
I don't think. you-
But you'll send me the clean copy to get
Yeah.
it to Magnolia, okay,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect.
All right, well, thank you, thank you. Any other business to come before the personnel board tonight?
No, just Kimberly, we all wish you very well and
Yeah.
hope
Stay
that
safe.
you have a safe home to go home to.
Me as well.
Yeah.
Me as well. Thank you for your well wishes. It means a lot right now. You know, we're all just praying for mercy for the whole state. It's a very tenuous situation.
All right, our best, obviously. And Joel, I wanna, acknowledge your attendance tonight, and
Thank
I
you.
thank you for taking the time. It really is important, I think, for as many town employees as possible, to have at least some opportunity to get a sense about what does a personnel board do? Or
Yeah,
don't do.
and what you're facing, that's really helpful for us to.
Yeah.
And I stayed just so I could thank all of you individually afterwards. I stayed for the rest of the meeting. I spent the 45 minutes listening to something I don't care about.
You should take the donuts.
Hey, it was just for you, that's why I brought it.
It's our gift.
I brought it, farewell to distribute.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
right?
Right.
Yes, yes.
So
I see.
Liz,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Bill, yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.